Part 2. Let's continue. We're now going to shift into Heather sharing with us the sacred money archetypes. There's a few of them, and they each have a strength, plus also a challenge. And Heather takes us through each one. So while you're listening, you can listen for, does that sound like me and my relationship to money? Or my relationship to everything I do, my relationship to my abundance, my relationship to my value. And if you choose to, you can also find the link in the show notes where you get to do the Sacred Money Archetype quiz, which I've done, and you get to find out what is your top money archetype. You actually find out more than that. You find out your relationship to all the archetypes, but it's so valuable to know this relationship to your money archetype, because then it gives you this more information about your relationship, and you can start to work on this strength and begin to chip away at this obstacle or challenge within this archetype. This is actually saying yes to the relationship you have with money and saying yes to, I'm going to work this relationship to its highest vibration. And these archetypes are such a great access point. I am so delighted that I met Heather, that I know my archetypes, that I can work them, and I am so excited for you to find out your money archetypes. If listening to this episode and doing the quiz, you get some insights and want to share your archetype with myself or Heather, please do, because we would love to hear from you. But for now, let's tune back in and hear from Heather about these sacred money archetypes.
Well, let's go there now with the archetypes. Now, I know my archetypes because I have been in a masterclass with you where we had the time where you could speak about all of them. There's 8, I'm correct, isn't it? That there's 8 archetypes. And there's a quiz that I did, which gave me my results of my top archetypes, which is where I got to really start to build this relationship. And listeners, lucky you, in the show notes is the link to also access all that Heather's speaking about, plus more. But we're going to talk now about the archetypes. And as you're listening, I want to invite people into, am I open to this relationship with myself? Because if you are, I highly recommend taking the quiz so that you can start to get this scaffolding and this framework around what am I working with here? So, Heather, let's introduce the money archetypes.
Yeah. And before I dive in, I want to just talk about that word archetype, because some people are like, what the heck is an archetype?
Yeah, right.
I've had people say that. And so an archetype just means a model or a theme. There's something that people around the world just immediately recognize, no matter what culture somebody's from. They share universal characteristics. You can think of the hero archetype, the king archetype, the Joker archetype, right? These are all things that no matter what language, somebody's like, yes, because there's just common characteristics. And they're things that people can relate to in terms of actions and characteristics, but also people can relate to them energetically or spiritually. And so as I say these archetypes, know that they all have this pattern of stories and beliefs and motivations and fears and courage. And they give you direction in making choices that help you to really embody a safe and peaceful, calm relationship with money. I will, as I go through these, it's just strongly suggest that as you listen to them, one, of course, think to yourself, okay, do I resonate with that? And think about the people in your life that really get on your nerves and think about, maybe they're that type, because we tend to, be annoyed by things that are opposite than us. And also think about this as well, because this is something that I hear so often. Twice yesterday, just within yesterday, I heard it twice. People are like, I hear my archetypes, my top 3 are conflicting, because we as humans tend to only hear the negative. And when I shared with these clients, this is what's so great about your combination, because most of us are a combination of 3. Sometimes people can have a little bit more, but most people are top 3. And I said to them, this is why your combination is so great. They're like, I didn't think of that, because we're so programmed to hear the negative. So I invite you to turn on that part of your brain that hears, oh, this is what's great about my archetype.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and we'll talk about this in nervous system terms as well. So we have first the banker, and the banker is the one who is the accumulator, who is the banker. Sorry. So the accumulator is the name of the archetype, and they're the inner banker, and they're the one who loves saving money. They're the frugal deal seeker. They love spreadsheets. They love tracking and managing money. And then on the flip side of that is they fear running out of money, and they can get stuck in analysis paralysis. Of all the archetypes, they have a very responsible relationship with money because they're great at saving money. They are great at details. They love researching things before purchasing anything. The disempowering traits are that they never think that they're going to have enough money to feel safe. They won't start things unless everything is perfect. They can be skeptical and suspicious of others. And so they're afraid to say yes to opportunities because they're afraid that they're going to get taken. So when their nervous system is dysregulated, and this is not an exhaustive list by any stretch, but some of the ways that you can tell that they're dysregulated is that they tend to hoard money, or they avoid help from other people, or they tend to micromanage, and they don't make decisions to move themselves forward because they're like, I just got to hold on to what I have. Their big lesson with money for the accumulator is to respect the power of money by investing to create freedom instead of being a prisoner to their savings. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes they're like, but I only have this much. And you have it so that you can create something with it. So for the accumulator, it's all about saying yes to opportunities because opportunities create wealth. That's the accumulator. Then we have, I like to go through these in alphabetical order. Then we have the alchemist, and the alchemist is the idea generator. They're the inner idealist. They're I like to call them like the woo-woo crunchy girl or guy who is this out-of-the-box thinker and has a love-hate relationship with money. They love what money does for creating transformation, and yet they can get really frustrated at how some people have used money for harm. And so then they think that it's money, but it's really just the people. And so they have this, again, like love-hate relationship with money. And they can see the greatness in other people. They are great at empowering other people to believe in themselves, yet they somehow end up, they get stuck monetizing their millions of ideas. They can see all these things that can be done. And then they're like, I don't know how to execute this. And so they also then manage to manifest money in unusual ways. So they have a ton of ideas. They may get stuck doing it, but they always end up manifesting it when they need it. And of all the archetypes, they have the most magical relationship with money because they're able to create it whenever they want. They are, they're great at playing in the world of possibilities and dreaming big. And they struggle with following through, as I mentioned. So every archetype has an empowering trait and a disempowering trait. And I say that and reiterate that because, like I said, most people just focus on the disempowering traits instead of seeing, wait, these are some positive and great traits that I do have. When the alchemist is in a state of nervous system dysregulation, they might engage in escapist behaviors like daydreaming or seeking distractions to cope with feelings of anxiety. Or they have this inconsistency about them because they think of a new idea and they'll start doing that. And then they think of a new idea and they'll start doing that. And then they think of a new idea and this, and so they have 10 projects going on and they haven't completed any of them. And they also tend to ignore practicality, meaning that they could disregard practical considerations, prioritizing their ideals over realistic outcomes. Like they may have this big vision, but what's present in the moment doesn't support that. And they tend to just, let me just stick to my ideals instead of dealing with the present moment. Does that make sense?
I have alchemist in my top 3. It makes perfect sense to me.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I also think as you're going through them, I just want to invite this for the for the people tuning in. Like as Heather's going through them, you'll hear your top 3 because you'll be like, that's me, that's me, that's me, that's me. Like, because we actually know ourselves, even if we're not really present and bringing it into like what we're working through right now. We know ourselves. You're going to everything you said about the alchemist. I was like, yep. Accumulator, no.
Right. Yeah.
Like, so I just want to invite everyone as we're listening to the rest of the archetypes, like listen to your intuition, listen to your own inner guidance system that's going to tell you that's me or absolutely not, and just trust. And then when you do the quiz, see if they line up.
Right.
You never know. I bet they do.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the alchemist's big lesson with money, this is like how to attract more money into their world, is to know that their mission here is to transform their ideas into financial success. It's not the follow through for them. It's just having the ideas and getting paid for their ideas. That is the gold for them. So if you're listening to this and you're an alchemist and you're like, but I can't complete things, that's great. You're not supposed to. Have somebody hire you to give you the ideas that you could look at their business and be like, oh, do this and this and this and this.
Mm-hmm.
So then we have the celebrity, and the celebrity is the inner star. They are the magnetic, confident, radiant personality that everybody can't help but want to be around. They love the spotlight. They appreciate the doors that money can open. They are charismatic. They are ones who deeply appreciate what money can do. They don't like to resist it. They want to have as much money around. Where they get disempowered is that they tend to overspend to impress other people. They may forget to pay their bills because that's just a boring detail. Right? And they can tend to have this champagne lifestyle on a beer budget. And so for them, of all the archetypes, they have the most joyful and generous relationship with money. Like I said, they love it and they want to share it with other people and with the people that they love in their lives. When their nervous system is dysregulated, their desire for attention and validation can lead to impulsive and excessive spending to maintain their image. They may prioritize maintaining their public image over practical financial responsibilities, which means that they're neglecting like essential financial details. And they may overextend themselves and say yes to so many social situations in an attempt to maintain their social status, which then leads to burnout and exhaustion. And so their big lesson with money is to accumulate wealth while being admired and valued for who they are versus what they have. And that means for them, their contract with money is that the more that I love and accept and believe in myself, the more money I make. I have a client who's a celebrity and it's a male, which is always fun for me to see like my male clients, in these. And we were talking yesterday and he's like, Heather, he's like, I just want to be on the stage. He's like, I don't want to do all this boring stuff. He's like, I just want people to look at me and to see what I'm doing. And I'm like, you can make that happen. You can absolutely hire out all these people to do these things so that you can just get on video all the time and talk and have people look at you. And he's like, that feels really good for me.
And there it is. That feels good.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, the empowered, that feels good. Not that this feels good. And so I'm not going to notice all these other things.
Mm-hmm.
That's the balance point of the archetypes, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So next we have the connector, and the connector are the inner relationship builders. They're the counselor, the cheerleader, the problem solver who freely gives away their times and ideas and advice. And they believe that they're always going to be taken care of. They would rather not think about money, and they struggle to charge for their services because when they meet somebody, that person instantly becomes their new best friend. And they're like, I don't want to charge them. And so they are the ones that, out of all the 8 archetypes, they have the most complex relationship with money because they wish that money didn't exist. They're I already mentioned some of their empowering traits, like they're the counselors, the cheerleaders. They're ones that can see the best in everybody, and they want to make sure everybody feels welcome. They're always looking for ways to solve people's problems and helping them to fulfill their dreams by connecting them with resources. And their disempowering traits are that they give energy and time and solutions away freely. And they have this fear of being accused of being salesy. So they resist putting their work out into the world. They're so afraid that somebody's going to be like, you're just doing this for the money. And that to them is like, how could you say that? That's not true. So when their nervous system is dysregulated, they tend to overextend themselves because their desire to help and support other people just is so great that they just will say yes, and they neglect their own needs and well-being. They can tend to go into people-pleasing mode because they just want harmony. And so they'll say yes. And so when we think about the nervous system terms, they go into fawn mode, where it's, I'm just going to put your needs above my own. Mm. And they also avoid conflict when they're in dysregulated state. So their desire to avoid conflict might intensify because if I could do everything I can to just stay away from that and keep this relationship intact, the reality is oftentimes avoiding conflict can rupture the relationship more than actually diving into it.
Yeah, yeah. It's like avoiding it is actually really insidious to our energy body.
Yes,
because we think we're avoiding it, but that conflict is actually living in your energy body and pulsing through the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel that I'm a connector too, so I've completely got it. Like I've got that. I spent years sharing what I know about the magic realm with people and not asking for a dime.
Mm-hmm.
It was really big for me to say, I'm going to start Big Life Magic. I'm actually going to value what I teach and share with the world. And I had to take some really big, deep breaths.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was on someone's podcast or she was on my podcast, sorry. And she was talking about how in the past, the healers of the communities were always taken care of. They didn't have to think about this because people valued healing and healers so much that they naturally took care of them. So we were talking about this idea of, could it be that those of us who have connectors and nurturers, which we haven't gotten to yet, but they're like cousins who have those traits, have that DNA of those in the past. So we just feel like, well, people take care of us. They just always did. But it's a different world right now. We don't live in that right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's definitely been my experience. Like for years, I was taken care of. There were people who, were giving to me and what I needed turned up and, and so I was able to float in that world and also not really have the relationship with money.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And which meant I always had just enough, but never made more than just enough.
And it's so ironic too, because connectors are all about relationships, yet connectors, when they're in the disempowered state, relationship can be really poor because they're like, I'm just going to avoid it. And so learning how to connect with it is the lesson. And for the connectors, like their big lesson with money, right? Like how they attract more money in the world is to create financial independence through the value of relationships. And so that means the more comfortable that they get with money, the more they empower themselves.
Mm.
The more empowered they are, the more that they can connect with other people and help other people.
Mm.
So we got 4 more. We're halfway through. We're going to move on to the Maverick. And the Maverick is the rebel with a cause. They are the ones who want to be fully alive, to express their authentic truths. They want to help heal the world with their big, bold ideas. And they're okay with it shaking things up. And they're like, yeah, let's shake up the world. And they believe that manifesting their dreams is possible, but sometimes they struggle with making progress because they get bored with what's working and then they tend to move on to something else. Whereas the alchemist, it's like, I have an idea and then I have another idea, I have another idea. It's not that they get bored with it. It's just, they're just squirrel, 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 right? Where the Maverick, they start to do something and then they're like, okay, I'm over this. Let's just move on to something else. And so I've noticed that majority of the entrepreneurs I work with have Maverick in their top 3. And I will say this, not entrepreneurs who are healers. Healers tend to have connector nurturers, right? But those who are in like more business, brick and mortar, or outside of the healing realm tend to have the Maverick in them. And they are the ones out of all the archetypes who have the most exciting relationship with money. It's kind of like being on a roller coaster where they experience extreme financial highs and lows, and they're here for it all. They want it. Where the accumulator's like, oh my gosh, I only have this amount of money. I'm so scared, right? The Maverick is like, oh my gosh, I just made this deal and I just, earned $500,000. 2 weeks later, oh, I just lost $700,000. Whatever, I'll build it back up again. They love that excitement. And so some of their empowering traits are that they see things that are unfair, that aren't working. As I mentioned, they have bold ideas. They're champions of the underdogs. Some of their disempowering traits are that they get bored easily and will burn everything down because of boredom, as I mentioned. They can be attracted to get rich quick opportunities. And they also have this, don't tell me what to do, because they love to do it themselves. And that sometimes has them miss out on doing things in a faster way. And so when their nervous system is dysregulated, they tend to engage in impulsivity, because their spontaneous nature might escalate when they are feeling this dysregulation. And that leads to impulsive decisions without considering the consequences. They can be reckless. They have this risk taker, that's the rebel. And so dysregulation can magnify that risk-taking behavior. And that can then make them be more prone to reckless business and life choices. And then another sign of their dysregulation is, as I mentioned, their excessive rebellion, because they have this desire to go against the norms. And they will oftentimes rebel just for the sake of rebelling, even if it doesn't make sense. They just want to rebel, right? So their big lesson with money is to know that they can stand out from the crowd while taking the easy route of investing in the tried and true. So this means living life on their own terms, taking calculated risks, and planning for financial security. Again, both and, not either or.
Yeah, I know some Mavericks, and I'm like, yeah, that's so possible and not the easiest thing to do for a Maverick. To actually then, I think for all of them, but to shift into this balance point, because we get into these energy set points where we're so used to being one way.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So then we have the nurture, and the nurture is the loving helper. They're the person who is always caring for other people. They put everybody else's needs first, and they are kind and generous and reliable. They're responsible with their own personal finances, and they give generously to help other people. And their disempowering traits are that they have a tendency towards people pleasing. They tend to attract people who need their help, whether it's financially or otherwise, and they sacrifice their own needs for others. If someone needs something from them, let's just say it's finances, and they barely have enough for themselves, they'll give it to that other person. It's like, you need to eat yourself. And they're like, it's okay, I'll be fine. I'll figure it out, right? But they don't think that that other person can figure it out. And so of all the archetypes, they have the most magical and loving, or sorry, not the most magical. They have the most loving and caring relationship with money. They do love and care for it. They just tend to give it out to others if they need it like more than they do. So when their nervous system is dysregulated, they tend to blur boundaries because they want to, again, just care for everybody else. Their struggle to say no could intensify, and they might experience heightened anxiety and worry, especially about the well-being of other people, more so than themselves. And so their big lesson with money is to create clear money boundaries, and to know that creating clear money boundaries is a way to demonstrate caring for other people. And that means to have the embodiment of I care for others by empowering myself. Yeah. So we got two more.
Yeah. But with the nurturer, am I right in feeling that it's also hard for them to receive?
Yes. And when they're in a disempowered state, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I find that with a lot of women I work with, and I'm not saying they nurture a money archetype, but it's like we're so programmed towards taking care and looking after and making sure everyone else is okay. And we don't realize that not only are we on the bottom of the list, but we've also energetically closed down our ability to be able to receive.
Yes. For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody receive, no matter what archetype you are, receive. The more you receive, the more you can give.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then we have the romantic, and the romantic is the leisure and luxury lover. They're all about going with the flow of life. They're all about, let's just slow down and breathe. They are, in their empowering traits, they are generous towards others, and they believe that everything will always work out. They are living in the moment. They're pleasure seeking. They're optimistic. They have an eye for beauty. And when they're in their disempowering traits, they only want to work when the mood strikes. They give up easily if things get too hard, and they get bored with details. So of all the archetypes, they have the most laid back relationship with money. They just trust it'll always be there and it'll come. And when their nervous system is dysregulated, they tend to go into escapism. They're going to seek pleasure and avoid discomfort. They will exhibit impulsive decisions because they just want to experience the here and now instead of thinking about long-term consequences. And their dysregulation can lead to excessive self-indulgence and overspending as a way to temporarily relieve them from emotional discomfort, right? It's that like therapy, retail therapy type thing. And so their big lesson with money is to use the energy of money to enjoy the best of life and create financial security. And so that means for them, creating and embracing a secure financial future is a way that they can always enjoy the best of life instead of having to go in a dysregulated state. What am I going to do? It's like, let's just create this stability, because the romantic, unlike the maverick, the romantic, really craves that stability and peace and calm. So lastly, we have the ruler, and the ruler is the empire builder. They are the visionary go-getters who know exactly what they want and are ready to roll up their sleeves and get to work. For them, work is fun. Their empowering traits are that they're self-motivated, they're ambitious, they take action, they can see ways to make money everywhere, and they inspire others to do what seems impossible. And their disempowering traits are that they're always chasing a moving money target. They are rarely satisfied. My ruler clients are constantly ones of like, oh yeah, I did this and I need to do this now. And I say, what did you do to celebrate accomplishing this? Nothing. I got to do this. And I'm like, no, we got to celebrate, right? Because they just don't celebrate their wins and they get frustrated when things don't happen quickly enough. So of the 8 archetypes, they have the most motivated relationship with money, and they can manifest money whenever they want. They want to work hard to create the money. And when they're dysregulated, they can tend to go into overworking mode because their need for control can lead to pushing themselves beyond healthy limits and neglecting self-care. They bottle up their emotions, and they will keep everything in, which creates stress, and that leads to physical and emotional strain. And they also, when they're dysregulated, can avoid help because I could do it better myself and faster myself. So their big lesson with money is to innovate and achieve and empower with grace and ease. And that means that they get to fulfill their financial destiny with grace and ease. And that is a big thing for them because they just want to push. Like they're so in the hustle culture and can miss out on so much because they're not living in grace and ease. So again, so that's both and. Can I create the empire that I desire with grace and ease?
Yes, to it all. Yeah. And all of them are so rich. They're a landscape in themselves. And like I know because I've done the quiz, everybody, the quiz, click the link. what you find is that you start to have what I call muscle on the bone to be able to work this relationship with money, because it's more than I grew up in a family with, which means I believe this. It's because, like, in my family, Heather, I'm one of 7 children. We all have different realities and relationships with money. All 7 of us.
Yeah.
But we all grew up in the same house. You know, it's,
isn't it?
You know, it's amazing. And then, and there's this, I love how you framed it in terms of, like, let's look at what these archetypes do really well, instead of how we sabotage or the Achilles heel of each one. Because I agree, we go towards, whether we're talking about money or love or our measure of success, we do go towards the thing that's not working before we kind of move towards the dream or the balance point where our full magic gets to come alive.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
And that's really the magic, is when you can step into the empowering traits of your archetypes. It's magical. But if you're trying to be like somebody else, it just doesn't work. And it's like, why is this happening? Well, this is why.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's coming back to, like, knowing self.
Exactly.
And then, like, knowing self is like, okay, so then how am I, you know, not only building my wealth, but also what does that mean for my relationship? What does that mean for my business? What does that mean for, you know, what type of lifestyle I want?
Yeah.
Like, there's all of these great questions that can come when we kind of get into the place of where I am now and wasn't before, which is, that's scary. I don't know what I'm going to uncover. I don't know if I'm ready to go there. Like, for so long, I knew working on my money mindset was going to be something that was going to unlock a lot for me. But I was in the tunnel vision of seeing that's hard. There's blame and there's shame and, like, all of that. And the reason I'm saying this is I just want to invite people, like, what if it was fun? What if it was actually expansive? What if it was something that started to bring new inspiration? Because I'm sure you see that with your clients when they start to work with this. It's actually, like you said right at the beginning, it's not about the money.
Right. I was talking to a client yesterday, and he had done the quiz. He had a tie of his top 2, and then number 2, a tie of 4. So
wow.
Yes, he's got a lot of things going on. And as we talked about it, he said, he's like, I can relate to all of the things that we said. And he's like, this is why I'm so fucked up when it comes to money. And I said to him, can I just share with you my perspective of this combination for you? And he said, yeah. So I went through and I was like, this is what I see is so great with these archetypes that you have access to. You can do this and this and this and this. And he's like, oh my gosh. He's like, I guess I'm not as messed up as I thought I was. I said, yeah, but he's never had anybody tell him of his greatness.
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me, like, for years, I was the girl who couldn't hold down a long-term relationship. Like, I didn't find the love, you know, and I've obviously changed that now because I'm married and in a different reality with my love vibration. But I remember saying to one of my best friends years ago, I said, God, I'm so bad at relationships. And she said, no, you're not. She said, you've got an amazing relationship with all of your sisters, with your mother, with your colleagues. Like, you and I have been best friends since high school, and all of our gang from high school, we're all still friends. You're excellent at relationships. And just that one reframing for me unlocked so much. I was like, oh, I am successfully in relationships every day of my life. Instead of, before that, all I could see every day was everybody else is falling in love and getting married except for me. And it's a shift, but it's a shift that I think we have to feel.
Yes.
You know, it's not like someone can just give you an affirmation and then you're good to go. It's like we have these moments when things unlock for us, when the energy is cleared, when we realize it's in our power to create this relationship, when we start to understand that, oh, there's all these dynamics within my relationship because of these archetypes, and I can now start to play and work with them.
Yeah.
And it gets empowering.
And that's why when I work with people one-on-one in their relationship with money, the first thing I do, and this is a whole other long conversation we don't have to get into, is I work on clearing out their heart wall, which is basically a wall that separates them from experiencing connection with themselves, connection with money, connection with success. We don't even talk about money. We just work on clearing out that heart wall. And that will take us about a couple of weeks. So that's the first month of the process of this one-on-one work that I do with people. And inevitably, after we do that, they're like, yeah, I'm not reacting the way that I used to when it came to money. I'm not, or, you know, being in a place of dysregulation the way that I was, because we're going in and shifting things energetically and clearing out those trapped traumas, those trapped emotions. It will always shift your relationship with money when you shift your relationship with yourself. Always.
Yeah. Yeah. Money, love, your magic, relationship with the whole world. I'm a yes. I am an absolute yes. So for everybody listening, we've kind of mentioned it a couple of times here. How can they connect with you? How do you work with people?
Yeah. So a couple different ways. I have my money archetype quiz that you can take. And then there's a video series workshop that you can watch to learn all about your specific archetypes. And each archetype has their own set. It has their own outfit, because I just want to embody them. You can watch that. I also have a money archetypes course that I run 1 or 2 times throughout the year. We're recording this in July. Probably by the time it comes out, I have another program that I'm working on that helps heal your relationship with money, nervous system stuff, helping you to embody that. So just, you know, follow, you'll find more updates about that. And I also do, like I mentioned, one-on-one work with people where I call Reclaiming Within Money Edition. And we go in and we heal those traumas so that you and your relationship with money can just blossom. And that's just deeper work where we really work on releasing those traumas and diving in, but not in a way that is so hard that you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this. It's actually really peaceful and beautiful. So I have that as well. So there's a bunch of different ways. And I also have a Facebook group where I have free, as of right now, free group energy clearings where each week we work on a specific statement, and that's just, you get free energy clearing. So I have a bunch of different ways that people can work with me.
Absolutely. And it's all going to be linked everywhere. Click the links and begin to explore your relationship with Heather, with your money. And I also want to just drop here, you also have a podcast, a Sweet Freedom podcast, which is another way that people can connect with, just like understanding a little bit more about how you work with people and the archetypes and how it's so expansive. Because again, it's not about the money.
No, ultimately.
Indeed. Yeah. Well, every episode of You With the Magic is dedicated. And I started this in episode 1 because I got it as an intuitive hit. I was like, I want to dedicate the episodes. That feels good. And then as I started to do it and invite guests to do it, the kind of the intention behind it is when we give a dedication, we're actually sending out some energy that's really positive and affirming, and also appreciating someone or something or a group of people in our life. And I love to do this at the end of the episodes, because then the invitation for the people watching and listening is to also send your own dedication, so that we can, because I honestly do believe the more that we can move into this gratitude and appreciation and those moments of sending it out in the good feelings, the more that we will build that just as our reality. So we're going to anchor this episode with you sharing a dedication. So for this episode, Heather, who would you like to dedicate this episode to?
Yeah, kind of a 2. I want to dedicate it to the version of myself that never thought I could have a healthy relationship with money. And also to any woman or man that's listening to this that thinks I'll never be able to figure out this money stuff or have a good relationship with it. I know it's entirely possible. It just is. If you can think it, then you can create it. There just might be some stuff standing in the way of really feeling like you can embody it, but we can clear that stuff out. That's easy.
Yeah. So take a big deep breath, everybody, and just, whether you want to give the dedication to yourself or to the version of you that is on the other side of that transformation. How powerful. Thank you, Heather, for sharing all of your amazing wisdom. How juicy is this? Let's all be abundant in money and magic. So my friends, breathe in now. Believe it to be true, because it is, that it's you. You are the magic.
Thank you for sharing your time and your magic with me in the latest episode of You Are the Magic. I invite you now to stay connected to that magic within you. You may choose to connect via a tune. It's a 5-day audio activation that's going to connect you to your intuition and then turn the volume of that inner guidance system up. You may also choose to become a member of the Big Life Magic Makers. It's our virtual community for women who are saying, yeah, I'm freaking magical, and I want to be hanging out with some soul sisters who not only believe in their magic, but are supporting each other to activate it. There's so many ways you can support your magic today with your intuition, through community, by connecting to me, and I invite you to choose you and your magic now. If this episode or any of these episodes have supported you in any way, I would love your support by sharing a review on the platform that you are listening or watching on. It really helps me to get this podcast into more ears and more hearts so we can claim it as women. We are freaking magical, and we are going to activate our magic to create the changes in the world that are moving us towards more love, abundance, prosperity, and joy. Breathe it in, believe it to be true. And to you, my friend, you are the magic.